Next on Reboot Your Life.
A best-selling positive psychology coach shares the secrets of serenity and sanity. Then we speak with a former U.S. Marine and firefighter who broke the financial code on getting ahead.
From Riverside Recovery, it's Reboot Your Life. Experience the ultimate reboot of your journey. Start anew and rediscover you. Transform your story. Rewrite your life. It's Reboot Your Life with Cary Harrison.
Veterans, when you're struggling, soon becomes later, becomes someday, becomes when. Don't wait. Reach out.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
From the Riverside Recovery Studios in Tampa, Florida, Cary Harrison with you. And thanks for listening to Reboot Your Life, where we help you get back to life you love. Well, she's a best-selling author, a researcher, and a positive psychology coach. Her books, The Tao of Inner Peace, The Tao of Personal Leadership, The Tao of Womanhood, and Inner Gardening, among many others. And they've been translated into 10 languages. Who are we talking about? Well, Dr. Diane Dreher. She's Professor Emeritus and Associate Director of the Applied Spirituality Institute at Santa Clara University and a lecturer in the Positive Psychology Guild in the United Kingdom. Dr. Dreher's research on positive psychology and hope has been published in academic books and journals. Her work featured in USA Today, Entrepreneur, Redbook, Glamour, Cosmopolitan, Science of Mind, and of course, radio and TV talk shows, including now Reboot Your Life. Diane Dreher, we want to welcome you to Reboot Your Life.
I am delighted to be here today, Cary.
And you get to help people for a living, which is really different from not helping people for a living, which is what a lot of people do too. There's a payoff to doing something good every day. I imagine it makes you ultimately a better person.
Well, there's research on that. Yeah. Reaching out to connect with people, reaching out to help people to feel a sense of purpose really is good for our emotional and physical health. And of course, it makes me feel better.
Now, you grew up in a dysfunctional family. You're not the only one. Millions of us right now listening, watching, we can put our hand up. I grew up in one. I grew up in several, even though there were only two parents, but there may have been 20 parents, really effectively. You grew up in one of these families, and it affected, as it does many, your sense of self.
Absolutely. Yeah. My mother was a very charismatic, beautiful, gregarious, narcissistic person. Okay.
But other than that, she was a good cook.
Oh, well, yeah, she was a good cook and she had a great sense of design. But I always felt like there was something wrong with me because I could never get her sense of acceptance. I didn't feel accepted for who I was. And on top of that, my father was in the Air Force, so we moved around all the time to his various assignments. I was in 10 different schools before I graduated from high school. So, and that too really messes up a person's sense of self because we never know where we are, who we can relate to, and, looking outside ourselves for approval. Do I fit into this new assignment? Can I get my mother's approval? That kept me rather imbalanced for a good number of years.
Dr. Dreher, how did you begin then finding your own sense of direction?
There were 3 different ways. First of all, I felt a real connection with nature. I remember climbing a tree outside of our house at Hamilton Air Force Base, up, this huge redwood tree. And when I got up high enough, I could look down at my parents' house and at the balcony outside my parents' bedroom. And I thought, I'm above it all. I am one with the tree. And I had this experience of awe, really, and transcendence, realizing that there was something more than simply my family of origin and something more than myself. And yet I was connected to it. In addition, I loved books. I would retreat to my room and books opened doors to different worlds. I grew up with Eleanor Roosevelt's autobiography. a number of histories and biographies. And again, I felt like I was connected to something beyond my personal family. And finally, in college, I started studying Eastern philosophy and meditating. And that too made me feel connected to something more than simply my personal life.
And that allowed you then to break free, really, and begin testing the waters of a new life.
Yeah. And what that taught me was that the voices outside of us who tell us who we are, and goodness, now there are even more with all this social media for young people growing up today, looking outside themselves to find themselves. That doesn't work. I started meditating and listening to myself, my feelings, who I was. And one day I realized that I needed to get a job because I wanted to go away to college. And I had applied to UCLA when my father was stationed in Germany and was delighted that I'd gotten accepted there. But when we moved back to the States in Southern California outside of Riverside, my mother came into the bedroom of our new house that day and said, "Well, what are you doing?" I was packing up my clothes to go to UCLA. I wanted to get away and go to college. And she said, "Your father and I have transferred your acceptance to UC Riverside, so now you don't have to go away to college." And I felt absolutely strapped. Didn't have to, right? Wanted to get away. So I figured I needed to get out of there. And I said, "Why did you do that?" And she said, "We can't afford it," and left the room. And that, I thought, oh dear, now my parents have, financial problems. That really wasn't the case. My mother got a new Mercedes for Christmas that year. So there was something else going on, some controlling behavior, perhaps. So I got these little part-time jobs and was trying to save enough money to move into the dorms. And one day I was driving down 14th Street in Riverside, past the newspaper, the Riverside Press Enterprise, and this sense of voice or inner voice said to me, "You're a writer, you should work there." So I made a U-turn, went into the parking lot, and as a shy teenager, walked into the newsroom and said, "Hi, I'm Diane Dreher. I'm a writer, and I'd like to apply for a job." And the reporter said, "Go upstairs to the personnel office." So I did that, filled out some papers, and they said, "Our college intern just gave notice this morning. Can you start work on Monday?" So how did I know that? I didn't personally know that there was a job opening there, but something more than me, something more than my ego knew that. And it was a wonderful job. I could work around my college classes, 20 hours a week, and ended up supporting myself, moved away from home, bought my books, paid my tuition, and became self-supporting from then on, and learned what it meant to be a writer working in this newsroom with all these dedicated reporters. How did I know that? And I believe we all have inner guidance, but there's so much noise in our world, and especially in our dysfunctional families, that sometimes we cannot hear that voice within us.
We're talking to best-selling author, researcher, and positive psychology coach, Diane Dreher. Dr. Dreher is Professor Emeritus, Associate Director of the Applied Spirituality Institute at Santa Clara University, lecturer in the Positive Psychology Guild in the United Kingdom. Her research on positive psychology and hope has been published in academic books and journals, USA Today, Entrepreneur, Red Book, Glamour, Cosmo, so many others. And we're really talking about this idea of positive thinking and how it literally changes and rebuilds your life. You also, you love the Renaissance, and a lot of people may not remember what the Renaissance is. It might not even be taught in some schools anymore, certainly not on social media, that's for sure. But that was a time when there was a giant shift in the way all the people up till then were living and looking at the world, and then suddenly it shifted and this new world started. Why that moment for you in history?
I believe, well, it was very inspiring. You have all these, writers, artists, scientists, and saints all of a sudden coming up with new ideas, exploring new worlds. There was a change in the theology between the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. In the Middle Ages, people believed that only priests, monks, and nuns had some kind of special calling from God, and everybody else was just supposed to do their work and fulfill their deficiency needs. In the Renaissance, people started teaching in the theology that everyone had been given special gifts or talents by God, and that it was our duty and our destiny to discover them and use them to fulfill our own lives, but also to make a contribution. So you have people like William Shakespeare, whose father was illiterate. He signed his name with an X, and we know what Shakespeare did. A little bit beyond that. We have Michelangelo, whose father would beat him whenever he caught the little Michelangelo as a boy drawing pictures, because he said, "You'll never amount to anything doing that. You should be a cloth merchant and bring money into the family." But Michelangelo believed he had been given special gifts. And, for all of us, we're grateful that he found them and he began to use them. So we have people discovering their talents everywhere, all of a sudden throughout Western Europe. And it made a huge difference. And I believe what's interesting is that we're all unique. We're all valuable. No one is inferior. We're all part of some divine plan. That was what they believed in the Renaissance. And it inspires people today, I think, to realize that we too, like Michelangelo, like Elizabeth I, like many, many people, Shakespeare, we all have been given something special. We're all unique. No two individuals who've ever lived have the same fingerprints, not even identical twins. We are all, given gifts of uniqueness. So part of our life's journey is to discover those.
Well, and then we can roll in AI, which, as much as we would like it to go away or pretend it's in the domain of science fiction, it's very real for people, because you having, you're a professor, emeritus, but had, say, ChatGPT been in full function some years ago, you would have had to deal with your students handing in these beautiful papers that took them 28 seconds to write, 14 pages of the most well-researched, footnoted, gorgeous, but all done by a language learning model. Doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's intelligent, but it's very well written. And this is kind of the new world. It's already hard enough for people to actually grasp real concepts. But if they can cheat in 28 seconds, where do we now find, this is such a I can't even answer this question. Where do we go to find the truth about ourselves and the world today?
Well, I believe that AI has some promising possibilities, but it can't substitute for the uniqueness of each human experience. And I've experienced some of this cheating. Fortunately, I don't have to deal with that anymore. But what's interesting now is that about 20 years ago, Martin Seligman and Christopher Peterson, two positive psychologists, did this international study of values and character strengths, going back in time to the earliest recorded histories in cultures all over the world. And they discovered that no matter how many differences we may have that polarize and divide us, that all cultures in the world agree that there are 24 human strengths common to all humanity, like courage, like, kindness and compassion, spirituality, perseverance, and that each one of us, according to the psychological research, we all have all 24 of them, but each one of us has 5 top strengths, which are our signature strengths. And if we discover them and use them on a regular basis, we are happier, healthier, and more successful. And there's a free online survey, www.via.character.org, that I had all my students and I have all my clients take to discover their top strengths. And, again, to discover our uniqueness and bring it forward. That's where we have creativity.
And
we
so
need it.
if you discover your strengths using this, or your students and all of that, then any of us can renew our lives. But I guess we have to know what those strengths are before we can renew our lives based on those strengths. So you got to actually do a little digging, right?
Yeah. And, the VIA character strength survey is a help. There's also just looking back at what we love, what gives us our lives meaning and purpose. If, you love to play team sports, I used to love to play touch football when I was a kid. Maybe one of your strengths is teamwork. And if you're working in an organization, you can use that strength to work together with people. Not everyone has the strength of teamwork. Not everyone has the strength of creativity. But, it's important to discover them. Yes, with the survey, and yes, also by really thinking about remembering when a time in our lives when we felt really vital, alive, and filled with joy. And that was probably when we were using some of our strengths.
We're talking right now to best-selling author, researcher, positive psychology coach, Diane Dreher. Dr. Dreher, is it Dreher or Dreher? I apologize, or neither.
It's Dreher, but it's pronounced many different ways in many different languages and places that I've lived. So it's okay, Cary.
Let's do Dreher. Why not?
Okay.
While we're at it.
Yeah.
She's Professor Emeritus, Associate Director of the Applied Spirituality Institute at Santa Clara University, and a lecturer in the Positive Psychology Guild in the United Kingdom. Her research on positive psychology and hope has been published in academic books and journals, USA Today, like I said, Entrepreneur, Redbook, Glamour, Cosmo, many, many others. Interestingly enough, back in Los Angeles, Southern California, you're in the Bay Area, Northern California. When I was there was an English woman who had put together a project inside of the Pacific Design Center, which is a giant complex of about 3 acres. That's really sort of an artist's, it's high end. Let's just call it what it is. It's high end furniture, things like that. But there's a big community room that's got to be the size of a giant house, maybe. And she did this experiment with plants and trees. She filled this entire giant room, like an auditorium, with mud, not to the ceiling, but just, this deep earth.
Wow.
And then put plants on either side, the farthest side of the room, plants on either side, and then put electrodes on the leaves. And they communicate with each other from one side to the other. There's rhizomes that apparently run under the soil, even though their roots don't connect. They shoot electricity through the soil, much as your brain shoots electrical current through you. They could talk to each other. Now, she demonstrated this. We hooked the electrodes up. She said, step on the mud in the middle of the room. And they're humming. There's like this music from the spheres. When everything is calm, they're just, that's the sound. And so I stepped on the mud and suddenly they start shrieking. Now, they don't have eyeballs like you and me. She said, okay, let's take it a step further. Walk to this side of the room, she didn't tell me to pull a leaf off, but press a leaf just on this one tree over here. Pick a tree, any tree. Just press on the leaf. I pressed on the leaf. All the trees, all the shrubs, all the plants on the opposite side of the room started screaming. And this was such a wake-up call to me about the interconnectivity of all of us, all of these life forms. And this is one of the things that your Tao of Womanhood and your other books, you talk about getting together, finding this sort of universal strength, putting it together and helping self, which helps others.
Oh, because everything is connected. The 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics was given to people who did research, finding that, okay, there's some atoms over here and atoms over there, and they are connected, even though they're really far apart. Trees, of course, communicate through their root systems. We human beings, and we probably all can recognize that when we go into a room, you can feel the energy there. And there are some people that when we're around them, like Cary, you feel really energized, okay? And there are other people, when you're around them, you feel really drained. It's because we're all connected with our energy, and the Tao calls it qi in Chinese, or ki in Japanese, or prana if you're in, Indian philosophy. And exactly, we are all connected. There's research done up here in the Heart Math Institute up in Boulder Creek in Northern California, where they've actually measured the energy of people when they are in a coherent state, in a peaceful state. And if you have 3 coherent people in a room and one person who's really nervous and upset, in a short period of time, the nervous, upset person will start feeling more at peace because the peaceful energies of the others have affected him or her. So we need each other, and we can create greater peace around us by creating greater peace within us.
So I guess that sort of answers the question of how you would define success in your coaching practice. You're going to get people that are gnarled, tangled barbed wire, busted glass. I mean, that's why they come in. We all know that there's got to be a better way. And it sometimes takes grown-ups and adult supervision to untangle that barbed wire. How would you define success in your coaching practice?
Success in my coaching practice is to help my clients discover who they really are beneath all the noise, the barbed wire, the discord, and the confusion, and to really embrace that. So I have them, discover their strengths, and I encourage them to explore, to experiment, and to be okay with, something doesn't work for them, try something else. We're all here to make a positive difference. So to support them on their own journey to greater fulfillment and greater inner peace.
Well, I have enjoyed this today. Of course, I get a certain pleasure out of speaking with English professors. I was an English major, so I feel at home. I feel safe and comfortable talking to you because we both like Bill Shakespeare, and we both like L. Frank Baum, and we like Jonathan Swift, and we like Al Pope, and all these cool, groovy cats throughout history that helped us learn how to tell stories, communicate, connect through the idea of using words, using communication. And if you can communicate in this world, you can actually get stuff done. And that's part of, I think, the skill set that you offer people is how to better communicate so they can get from here to here. And even if they're not the most verbal people, they have to kind of pick up those skill sets to be able to move forward. And you as a English professor, what a great person to offer that skill set.
And I'm glad that you're an English major and you are using your communication skills in such a powerful way to reach people's hearts and minds. Yes, and that's what brings us all hope, is the opportunity to use our strengths, to use our gifts, and to communicate them in every possible way to make a positive difference in our personal lives. And of course, since we're all connected, that makes a positive difference in our world.
Diane Dreher is best-selling author, researcher, positive psychology coach, and coach. She's on the coast, actually, on the West Coast, northern West Coast. She's a professor emeritus, associate director of the Applied Spirituality Institute at Santa Clara University, lecturer in the Positive Psychology Guild in the United Kingdom, and her research on positive psychology and hope has been published in academic books and journals, USA Today, Entrepreneur, Glamour, Redbook, Cosmopolitan, and so many others. We want to thank you for having joined us today.
And thank you for a wonderful conversation, Cary. And I'm just really glad to be here and to encourage everybody to discover your personal strengths. You are unique. You have something valuable, and we need it in our world.
Hang on, your reboot reboots in a moment.
How you holding up? Nothing wrong with getting help.
If I promise to look into it, will you drop it and help me build this fence?
Now you need my help.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Riverside Recovery of Tampa was created to offer state-of-the-art treatment options to people suffering from addiction. The model was developed to meet clients and their families where they're at and provide them with the tools and education needed so that they can achieve long-term recovery. No two people are the same, and no two people have the same experience with addiction. and it is for this reason that we tailor each treatment plan to the unique needs of each individual. Located alongside the Hillsborough River in the heart of Tampa, Riverside Recovery offers the full continuum of care. And what that means is that we offer medical detoxification, residential care, day treatment, intensive outpatient, and outpatient levels of care. The program at Riverside is focused on high-quality clinical care, offered in a safe, comfortable, and serene environment where everyone feels empowered to change the course of their lives. The stigma that surrounds addiction continues to be high on the list of reasons that people don't seek help. At Riverside Recovery, we're working to change the narrative and empower people to recognize addiction as a disease, not a moral failing. We can recover, and we do, as evidenced by the thousands of people who have taken that courageous first step in asking for help. The staff at Riverside understand what it's like to recover. In fact, over 75% of our staff are in long-term recovery. So if you or someone you know needs help and are ready to seek treatment, call Riverside Recovery of Tampa at 1-800-871-5440. That's 800-871-5440. You can learn more about the treatment we provide at rrtampa.com. Again, that's rrtampa.com.
Life 2.0. It's your life and your reboot. It's Reboot Your Life with Cary Harrison.
And from the Riverside Recovery Studios in Tampa, Florida, Cary Harrison with you. And thanks for joining Reboot Your Life, where we help you get back to life you love. Well, I want you to imagine a former U.S. Marine and firefighter turned trailblazing entrepreneur. Now, his story isn't just about his transformation. It's proof positive for veterans and entrepreneurs seeking to impact their own stability and lives without risking their personal assets. Uh-oh. Well, after feeling trapped in his childhood dream job, this former Marine and firefighter took a bold leap, sold all his possessions, and embarked on a backpacking journey of self-discovery to Costa Rica. Flash forward, and we now have Jesse Simpson empowering his fellow veterans and entrepreneurs through his company, Abundance Codes. Jesse Simpson, I want to welcome you to Reboot Your Life.
Cary, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
We're always glad to have you here. And, you know, one of the things that we love are stories of great transformation. You clearly experienced feeling trapped in your childhood, as you wrote about. The dream job led you to take you thought was your dream job, led you to take a bold leap towards entrepreneurship, especially after the military. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, of course. So my background's military and fire service, like you said, Cary. My childhood, well, let me see, seventh grade. I was in seventh grade on 9/11, and that moment in time is what made me want to be a Marine and firefighter. So that was just my childhood dream job. My path was carved from a young age. It really saved me from my troubled youth and put me on this direction of serving something larger than myself. I did that. And I joined the Marines right out of high school and went on 3 deployments, served in combat in Afghanistan, and really had the time of my life and really built the structure needed for me to develop as a man, as a leader in really intense situations. And then when I was transitioning out of the military, I was a bit lost. And I found a lot of the things that I thought were going to be true were not true about how society operates and stuff. But what it really saved me was this volunteer trip to Lima, Peru, where I worked at this orphanage with these kids who had sticks and balls and dirt, but the biggest smiles I'd ever seen. And it really started to shift my perspective, started to chip away at this armor that I had in me. And this idea that I'm this combat Marine, I'm going down into to help these kids. But after 2 unforgettable weeks, it was clear that they had changed me. And so I took that back and really internalized that the lessons from that experience and really integrated that into my life in the United States, volunteering a lot in the community, and all while building up to getting my childhood dream job as a firefighter. I got that in 2014, and it really wasn't that long before I realized that we're not really fighting fires. 3% of the calls were actual fires. So the rest of those, what is it? Well, most of those are medical calls. And from my experience, a vast majority of those were mental health in nature. So we did help people, but the vast majority of the calls are drunks and addicts in the streets, the suicides and overdoses in people's homes. And it really just started to rub me the wrong way. And I felt this internal disillusionment coming to the surface about what I thought I would be doing and how I thought I would be helping people. And when that started to be peeled back, I really started to question my entire life, who I was. This is what I wanted since I was a young boy. It really saved my life as a young boy. And then when I realized that I'm not going to just sit here looking forward to retirement, I had to find another way. And what that looked like for me was eventually starting up a nonprofit where I paired transitioning veterans with troubled youth in the community. Essentially, my life experience, what helped me both times as a young boy, getting a mentor, and as a man moving out of the Marines, looking for purpose, I became a mentor. And my whole life had been preparing me for this. So I started this nonprofit just following the death of my best friend from the Marines, who died in November of 2016 from a heroin overdose. Here I am going on heroin overdoses and being just reminded of this. And, I'm just like, there's got to be a better way. So I really set off and ultimately built this nonprofit. I got a lot of rewards and recognition. I was recognized at one point in 2017 as the Arizona State Firefighter of the Year. So there I was, I was at the pinnacle of the profession, spoken hundreds of firefighters at the State Fire School, talking about leaving a lasting legacy and running the nonprofit. And all the while, I'm burning both ends of the stick, working one of the busiest ladder trucks in the country, going on these traumatic calls. Sleep deprivation is some of the worst of it. And at the time, my military trauma had been bubbling up. My childhood trauma had been bubbling up. And then, of course, the sleep deprivation and burning both in the stints was really catching up with me. So what happened, Cary, was after a number of things just kind of stacked on top of each other on top of that, my brother was dying of cancer. My mom lost her job. And really the last straw for me, Cary, was in October of 2017, there was a shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada, where a dude took a machine gun and shot up a bunch of country music concert goers. And I just really sat back after that because I was a Marine and I was a machine gunner in the Marines. And I shot machine guns at people in combat with the intention that I'm going to be helping prevent that from happening here. And so with all this bubbling up disillusionment coming to the surface, and now this one, the last straw for me, really set me back. I fell into this really deep depression and this questioning of my entire reality, and ultimately decided to pull the brakes on the nonprofit, which sent me even lower. And this was fall 2017. And I'm just sitting there, and all the while I'm thinking about that tug in my heart to travel back to Latin America. That's so real experience that I had in Peru with these kids who had the biggest smiles I'd ever seen. That was the most authentic experience of my life. So long story short, with that, I decided that New Year's Eve, I'm moving to Costa Rica. And once I made that decision, things started to evolve in a way where that June 26, about 6 months later, June 26, 2018, I took that one-way flight to Costa Rica. I spent all spring leading up to that selling all my clothes, my car, pretty much everything I owned. All I had left was 2 backpacks full of stuff. And I took that one-way flight on this adventure of a lifetime, not knowing where I was going to end up. I ended up backpacking throughout the world for 10 months, about another year throughout the United States. And then COVID happened, and I'm sure you might have some more questions here, but that was the journey up to that point.
And that was the great reset for most of the residents of Earth. It didn't matter where you lived, you were touched by it. And I like your story, not only of transformation, but also enlightenment, that sometimes the official story and the official mission may be different from that, and that it's up to us to sort of interpret. And part of the values of being a Marine and Semper Fi and just telling the truth and following the Constitution, following the best choices that are available, are to sometimes make difficult choices. You jumped off the high dive into some uncharted waters for yourself, but because of your training, you were actually able to do that. A lot of us are not. A lot, it's so tenuous as it is, but you abandoned everything and did it. And now you have found a way to help your fellow veterans, your fellow Marines, just regular people get on stable footing through this interesting enlightenment of yours.
That's right, Cary. So my experience, what I didn't share there is when I first left, the way I justified it for myself, I went to grad school online, but I started my second business at this point, a coaching company. And I used my firefighter pension, went through about 20K pretty quickly while on the road. And then I busted through my life savings, not much long after that. And so there I was doing my thing, traveling around the world throughout Latin America, starting my first business, getting it going. But it didn't take long before that was gone. And then I was moving into personal credit card. And I was at one point, a couple of years into it, was hosting retreats in Colombia. I had a spiritual awakening, Cary. I went on this unbelievable journey. I've just seen the most incredible things and had these unbelievable experiences. And I really wanted to create or be a bridge for people to experience what I experienced, especially in Colombia. But I was trying to pay for my everyday expenses with a business that wasn't yet making money, racking up personal credit card debt and getting this bad debt loop where I was struggling financially. And, here I am in the land of the free, but struggling to pay the bills. And really what actually happened, Cary, was I was paying off large sums of my credit card. And each month it was maxed out again. And of course, there's a big sense of responsibility that I need to take because I was the one spending that. But I started to look a little bit deeper into what's going on here with the interest payments. 25, I got one credit card that's 29% interest. And then I started, COVID opened up a lot for me. And where I decided to focus specifically was in the financial aspect, the financial sector. What is this fiat currency that we have? Basically it boils down to this being unconstitutional and it's fraudulent. In fact, we're getting this fake fiat currency sent to us on a plastic credit card. And what I realized that the opportunity with business credit is you can use this fake fiat sent to you on a plastic credit card to acquire assets, to start or scale a business, or do whatever you want as far as income generating assets. You put food on your family's table. And that's ultimately where Abundance Codes was born. When I realized there's a massive opportunity, we've reduced all barriers to entry for people. And right now, it's more important than ever. You get assets that will appreciate in value with the coming inflation, so you can create a life of freedom for yourself and your family without having to worry about the government restrictions and the total control that will be soon coming down upon us.
So we're going to jump into that in just a second. I'm going to grill you like a Marine so that we can fully understand this. I already get it because I've already done sufficient research on this and understand it, but it's slightly complicated, but very easy. So it just needs to be laid out. Let me just reintroduce you because people are coming and going in their cars, getting in and out. Some are watching. We're talking right now to Jesse Simpson, former U.S. Marine and firefighter turned trailblazing entrepreneur. After selling off his possessions and embarking on a backpacking journey of self-discovery, he found a way to empower his fellow veterans and entrepreneurs through his company, which is called Abundance Code. And one of the things you do, Jesse, is you help people get the kind of capital they need in order to survive, but it doesn't hurt their personal credit rating. And that's the most precious thing you and I have. If you have a bad credit rating, soon this Congress is talking about not letting you fly on airplanes because you might be a risk. You might be like that guy in Las Vegas. You might be a little nervous. And so your credit rating is it's like your DNA. But if you could actually get money that you could use for your business, for your ideas, without touching your personal credit rating, and maybe pay no interest on loans when the interest rates are through the roof right now, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly right. And really the idea for me with this, a lot of things came online, but one of them was this idea of parallel structure, building the parallel structure. And in order to build structures, you need to have funding. And so really my intention is to use the bank's funding to alchemize that energy. The fake fiat on a plastic credit card has no intrinsic value. It's based off of consensus, which means people agree that has value, but all around the world, countries are dumping the US dollar because it no longer has value. And we can use that and acquire those assets, build that parallel structure that we need to make sure our families will stay forever healthy, happy, and free. And that's really the intention behind what we're doing at Abundance Codes. So the biggest requirement for this, I like to say about 70% is really based upon personal credit score. So you can check your bureaus on Credit Karma or Experian, and really our minimum is 740 or above. All right. So most banks will do an automatic decline at 680 or below. But where we're at right now, we can do 740 or above. And there's all kinds of ways to optimize your personal credit. The way I look at though is you have late payments or derogatory marks, you're going to really need credit repair, which we can support within that. Otherwise, we'll optimize your credit, removing hard inquiries, adding you to what are called trade lines, which essentially authorize user cards, increasing your available credit, and do all kinds of like secret hacks that I've learned within the system that allow you to get up to that threshold that is best for applying for funding. Then from there, what you're hitting on is the next 30%, which is business. Now, I would say if you haven't started a business yet, there's another hack that we would use called aged LLCs. So instead of getting a brand new LLC from the Secretary of State that's 3 days old and go for funding, it would be way better since the banks know that most businesses fail, about 90% fail within the first 2 years. Banks know that. So they're looking at age as well. So personal credit and age and in a properly established business. So we do a done for you business setup and our startup accelerator, custom website, business address, business phone number, all these things, and an LLC that is at least 3 years or older. We've had one from 2001 the other day, so that's 23 years old. Now imagine going with 740 plus credit score in a 10-year or 3 or 5 year old business, properly established. We do a done for you service to reduce all barriers to entry. And then that's when we're going to the banks using our system, strategy, and relationships to unlock this abundance that simply wouldn't be possible without us.
You know, a lot of people are coming out of rehab. A lot of veterans come back with PTSD. Some are transitioning back into civilian life. So they don't have this infrastructure. And a lot of this sounds way up there. This, by the way, is the secret that billionaires have known about forever. This is called credit stacking. This is how they get giant amounts of capital at 0% interest while everyone else is paying 29, 39, 49% interest for the luxury. These aren't those credit cards. You're talking about you can get the same amount with 0% interest for like 2 years, and all you have to do is just pay your minimum balance on time.
That's right, Cary. So what we're doing, and just to demystify it a little bit, because a lot of people like their red alert comes up when they hear 0%. To demystify it a little bit, all we're doing is leveraging the introductory offer on business credit cards. That's it. All right. So dozens of banks have 0% interest. They're trying to get your business. So they bring you in or entice you to come in with that 0% interest. Now, the value. So I guess let's start with that. So you could go in right now and you could get 0% interest if you have a properly established business and your credit score is, higher than 740 or that 680, like I talked about. You're going to get a business credit card at 0% if you go to the right bank. That being said, the value that we provide is the significantly higher amounts. And Cary, one example I like to give with this, one of our clients, his name was Vince. He came to us after having went to Chase Bank. Chase Bank has 2 0% interest business credit cards, both of which are for 12 months. So an entire year of no interest. It's unbelievably important when you're starting a business, you have that capital, and it's so impactful when you're not paying 25 or up to 50%, like you said, Cary, interest on top of that, which is just drowns small business owners. But the value that we have provided is a larger amount. So Vince, when he went to Chase, he got that first business credit card from them. His limit was $5,100, right? So, I mean, I don't know about you or when you're starting, but
when you're starting out, that's about normal.
That's about normal. But if we're talking about getting something up and going, you're going to need more than a month's worth of expenses to make that happen. All right. So the value we come in, we went same Vince, same business. The only difference is that using our system, strategy, and relationships, we were able to get him on the other 0% interest business credit card at Chase, $80,000. So it's a 14x different on one card. He wanted $100,000. We were one card away from getting him that. And that's the value that we can provide is those larger amounts of funding that simply would not be possible without abundance codes.
Life hacks from a Marine. I mean, this is where you guys, with all your discipline and all your learning and training, where you actually study systems. That's part of your job. Study the landscape, study the terrain, above, below, besides, things you can't even see, be able to predict and understand. So reverse engineering life as we know it, the way we've all been trained to understand finance, now being entirely different. You found this life hack where people can get access, especially if they're just reemerging into life from whatever, from coming out of a horrible situation and rebirthing and rehatching into the environment. Now what can I do? And you found a way to do that using just decent credit, getting a hold of an LLC or creating your own, or you will establish that for them. You also get rid of their negative credit rating. And let's face it, most people who are down and out have a lousy credit rating. So they just want to go, I don't want to hear anymore. And you're saying, oh, no. Take your hands away from your ears. This is good news. We could fix it for you. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny too, my journey, military and fire service and then traveling, I never thought I'd get into credit repair and business funding. But looking back, my entire life has been fighting for freedom and serving my community. And right now, I know the biggest block from freedom for most people is their finances. And what I've realized is the biggest opportunity within that space is helping entrepreneurs, equipping them with the capital they need to build their vision so the powers that be don't impose theirs upon us. But at the end of the day, Cary, credit repair is a thing that's been around since way before I knew it. And this is simply stating the law, using it to your benefit to remove negative items and derogatory remarks. That's what you can do. For example, one simple one, people have collections. You never had any sort of contract with the collections agency. They bought that debt from the banks for pennies on the dollar, but you never signed any papers. They're only trying to entice you into claiming responsibility for that debt. And if they do, it'll be a little bit harder to get rid of. But otherwise, it's a relatively straightforward process. You send a letter into that collection agency. It needs to say the right things, but ultimately that debt can be removed. And that's just one of the hacks that can be done to remove collection specifically. But you don't have to wait 7-8 years for your credit report to be cleaned up. And you simply need credit repair if you have late payments or derogatory remarks.
And you could teach people what that letter says. I mean, that letter is worth $1 million.
emotionally to anybody, and to be able to use that kind of thinking just in general life to get out of situations that you haven't put yourself in, but that the laws over time have sort of built themselves around. This is self-care for many people to be able to get rid of. And a derogatory remark on your credit score doesn't mean someone called you a bad name.
That's about right, Cary. So what I mean by derogatory remark, and I should be more specific, those are late payments. Those are collections. Those are charge-offs. Those are foreclosures, bankruptcies. Those are what we would call derogatory remarks. And if you have those, then you need credit repair. But I think what you might be getting into is a hard increase. So each time a bank will check your personal credit, that leads to a hard inquiry. So that's something that can be removed. As long as those hard inquiries are not attached to an open account, they can be removed. And one thing people don't know is each time you go apply for any sort of loan. So let's say, for example, you're car shopping and you're going to go to 4 or 5 different dealerships checking out your favorite ride. Well, each time, if you have them do a hard inquiry pull, that leads to a stacking up of these hard inquiries on your personal credit. Well, if you only buy one of those cars, then you'll have 3 or 4, in this case, hard inquiries that can be removed. So you just need to have that process removed. Otherwise, when you're going, ideally want to see the hard inquiries less than 2 in the last 6 months. Because think about it. If a bank's looking at your report, maybe you're going to apply for business funding after you get your car and you have 5 hard inquiries, the banks are going to see that you're looking for credit. And the banks don't want to loan money to people who need money. They want to loan money to people who have money or who at least look like they have money. And that's where we're able to come in and really optimize different things to make the credit report look ideal, look good. And then we're able to go for funding and get these larger amounts.
Life hacks from a Marine and former firefighter, Jesse Simpson, turned trailblazing entrepreneur, helping other veterans, helping other people who are coming out of difficult situations, whether they're in recovery or whatever, trying to figure out a new life and how to actually get there without having to jump 78 rungs up an impossible ladder. You can go from rung 1 to rung 90 in one step, and he can help you do it. This is such a cool form of service. And you sold all your possessions. You embarked on a backpacking journey. You had this wonderful transformation. Let's talk for a second how becoming a father actually changed your perspective on, wealth building and leaving a legacy to the world.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cary. Yeah, my daughter, you can see her behind me right here. She's just about to be 14 months old. She is the light of my life. Her name's Ellie. Ellie means the bringer of light, and she really has brought so much life. I got a son on the way, and just as I was going through this big experience, digging into the financial infrastructure, figuring out what's going on here, I right not long after that, my daughter was born. And I had been on this big journey about 5 years. I was off, I was doing my thing, traveling throughout Central and South America, backpacking through Europe, hosting retreats in Colombia, living my life and doing the things that I wanted to do. But like you said, Cary, everything changed when my daughter was born. And it really just shifted my perspective, and the realization come that this little baby girl is coming into my life. And she, not only is she going to be looking up to me, she's going to marry someone just like me. And from what I see happening in the world right now, it's very unbelievably important that I create a something that I can leave behind for her for when I inevitably die, that she can look back on and know that I took care of her. And that's the legacy you're talking about. And building wealth for my family is really something that came online when I was coming up to my daughter's birth. So not that long ago. And just with the intention, that has opened up these unbelievable doors. It's how Abundance Codes was born. And my mission really here is help fathers, mothers, parents that are entrepreneurs do the same thing for their family, do the same thing for their children, put food on their family's table. And we've reduced all barriers to entry. You don't have to spend any of your own money. You got to use the business credit, the bank's money, the bank's fake fiat to put food on your family's table. And there's no better gift. And that's what I want to teach my daughter.
Well, this is a wonderful way to give back and to teach the rest of us how to be self-supporting on our own contributions, so to speak, and to be able to do it effectively and easily and without pain and agony, and actually get ahead of the game and all do it absolutely within the boundaries of the law, using the skill sets that you've learned as a Marine, as a firefighter, to get your family a little leg up. And also people, there are vets that come back with PTSD who wouldn't be able to navigate this on their own, even if you gave them a brilliant instruction manual, because they're dealing with other stuff that just absolutely take up, time and psychic energy, and you'll just handle it for people. That's even value added on top. So I think this is awesome. And I want to thank you, Jesse Simpson, for joining us today.
Cary, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Cary Harris with you. We've been talking to Jesse Simpson, former U.S. Marine and firefighter turned trailblazing entrepreneur after selling all of his possessions and embarking on a backpacking journey of self-discovery. He found a way to empower his fellow veterans and entrepreneurs through his company, which is called Abundance Code.
So how's civilian life treating you?
It's fine.
When I got out, I didn't want to admit that there was anything wrong because I felt like a failure. Maybe you are fine. If you're not, it's okay.
Thank you.
Veterans, find resources at va.gov/reach.
Are you familiar with Riverside Recovery of Tampa? Well, they offer a profound, all-embracing approach to addiction treatment. With a dedicated team of empathetic professionals, Riverside Recovery is committed to guiding individuals on their path to enduring recovery, using a variety of science-backed therapies, counseling, and support services. Riverside Recovery values the individuality of every recovery journey. Their tailored treatment plans respond to the specific needs, the hurdles, the goals of each resident, providing effective aid regardless of whether you're taking your first steps in recovery or maintaining your progress. With Riverside, recovery isn't just achievable, it's an influential journey towards a healthier, brighter future. The testimonials of those who've undergone treatment there are evidence of rediscovered self-worth and potential. Located on the tranquil Hillsborough River of Tampa, Riverside serves as a peaceful haven, promoting self-discovery and healing. They acknowledge that recovery is about more than just overcoming difficulties. It's also about finding your innate strength and resilience. The Riverside Recovery's committed team are your empathetic allies in your recovery journey. They comprehend that genuine healing involves the mind, the body, and the spirit, meticulously dealing with all facets of addiction. You can discover more at rrtampa.com. That's rrtampa.com. Or reach out at 1-800-871-5440. That's 800-871-5440. 800-871-5440 or rrtampa.com.
You can tweet us anytime on X at Reboot Your Life.
Life 2.0. It's your life and your reboot. It's Reboot Your Life with Cary Harrison.
Quarterback Caleb Williams, he announced last week that he is making a move from Oklahoma to
whose videos he's in a USC uniform, but finally it's official.
When the stadium lights are dimmed, when the cameras stop flashing, when the pads are off, the pressure sinks in and it's just me in a world of expectation. Nobody can carry that alone. I went to college on my first year and I actually was taking 11 classes or 10 classes, one or the other. I wasn't in the position that I wanted to be, which was actually on the field and playing because I didn't play the first half of the season. And so when that happened, it was probably one of the more tougher times in my life. And I was actually a meme last year. On one occasion was good and one occasion was not so good. One occasion was Texas. And where we won, and then the other occasion was where we lost to Oklahoma State. And the sad moment, I kind of turned off social media, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that, and focus on, like I said, what I like to do, and then my support system, my team, my teammates, and then what I mean by my support system is my either close friends, really close friends, my family members, or my mentors that have been there and know me. Pressure doesn't have to be carried alone. What if we came together as a team? Embrace talking openly about our mental health.
I start the conversation about a friend's mental health by simply asking them, how are you doing? Whether that's a text, a phone call, or even in person. And if I get that canned, I'm good response, I sit there patiently, look them in the eye and say, bro or sis.
To learn more about getting the conversation started, visit seizetheawkward.org.
Learn more at rrtampa.com. Reboot your life today.